Don, I was born and raised on a farm. After I left school, I worked for my father on the farm.
Did you own your own farm?
I did the last number of years at our farm. Previously to that, I rented my father's farm for 5 years.
And when did you leave the farm?
I left the farm in 1958.
Now, could you give us the main reasons why you decided to give up farming?
Well, Don, my main reason was physical. I developed some back trouble. I was unable to do full day's work. And as a result, it ended in financial stress, and I was forced to sell my farm.
You were operating as a one-man farm. You didn't have hired help.
That is correct.
And what about your son? Was he interested in farming as a career, or did this contribute to your decision, too?
My son was not interested in the farm. Had he been interested, I might have possibly continued as on farm.
As a man who had only gone to high school until he was 16 and didn't have any other training besides farming, did you find much difficulty in getting a job when you left the farm?
Certain types of employment were difficult to obtain, although selling jobs, which would be commission, were very easily had. That is what I started out as.
Why didn't you stay with this kind of work?
Well, income was too
Fluctuated quite a bit. It was
yes.
A little bit like farming, perhaps.
That's
and
right.
How did you come to take up the work you're now doing?
I was fortunate in knowing the supervisor in one of our local supermarkets, and I was given employment there as a meat cutter.
You've had this job for several years. How do you compare farming and non-farming occupations?
Well, the labor is not as strenuous, of course, in the job I'm doing now. However, there's a certain satisfaction in doing your own work and so forth.
You had perhaps more opportunity for community activities in the country than you find in the city?
Yes, Don, that is right. For this reason, that I feel there was a greater need for it in rural areas.
I see. Now, how about income?
Income at the present time, you are restricted to what you can earn because of the restricted hours. Whereas on a farm, if you have a large enough operation and certain lines of farming, there is no restriction as to your income.
But on the other hand, in your present employment, you know exactly how much you'll be making.
Yes, that's right, Don.
And what about security and pension plans? I suppose your present job would have this sort of arrangement.
Yes, we have a contributory pension plan, and at a certain age, retirement age, why we will be given a certain income.
I'm wondering about your family's reaction to this change. First of all, how many of the family do you have, Bruce?
We have 3 girls and 1 boy.
Well, how did they like the idea of leaving the farm, and how do they like city life now?
Well, they like city life very well. The girls didn't seem to need too much adjustment. Of course, my son, being the oldest, there were a lot of things that he missed on the farm. And I think putting in his time here in the beginning was his biggest problem.
There probably isn't as much difference between living in the country and the city nowadays as there used to be.
No, there isn't, Don. We had all the convenience on the farm that we have in the city. As far as actual living conditions go, I can't see any difference.
No, I think this is so nowadays. Finally, Bruce, I'd just like to ask you for your comment or any observation you'd like to make for a young person who's considering farming as a career.
Don, I believe there is a definite future for a young couple on a farm today, providing they would have sufficient financial backing that they could go into specialized farming. And I feel that there would be could be a real income in a specialized line.
Bob, could you tell us about your farming experience?
I farmed with my father, who owns and operates Mutry's Chick Hatchery in St. Williams. In addition to the hatchery, we farmed 100 acres, harvested wheat, oats, small acreage of corn. We had a few dairy cattle, and at one time raised hogs for market.
So this was a general type farm specializing in poultry. Now, when did you leave the farm, Bob?
After completing high school, I stayed on the farm for 1 year, leaving to accept a position with the Canadian Bank of Commerce.
How long ago was that?
This was in 1946.
So that was about 18 years ago. Now, why did you leave the farm?
Well, Don, I enjoyed farming, and particularly the hatchery business. My father and I could not agree at times, as it was my feeling that we should expand more rapidly, that new up-to-date machinery should be purchased. In addition, I had a younger brother, and I did not feel that there was room on the farm for 3 families.
So the 2 main reasons that you left the farm were a variance of ideas as to how the farm could be operated and the fact that it wasn't a big enough unit for 3 families.
Okay.
Now that you've been away from the farm for 18 years, Bob, and have a responsible position with the bank, how do you compare farming with your present occupation?
Farming is associated with banking in many respects. The economy of our country needs farming, and farming needs banking. It provides wonderful training for a young man, and I find that an employee with farm background is very reliable. He is better to serve the farmers. He understands their problems, and my heart is with the farmer to assist him where possible.
Well, let's compare some of the specific components of the these different occupations. What about income?
Well, our income in the bank is, I feel, more stable. However, I feel that we're under a little greater pressure. A young man who decides to go into farming has a big capital outlay at stake. Unless he has a start to a farm being handed down, it's very difficult for him to get started. Both banking and farming provide security, and provided you are prepared to work hard at either, you will be successful. This is the case in most businesses.
That's true. Well, what about hours of work? Most people think that a banker works from 10 to 3, 5 days a week.
Well, this is not the case. At times, we are called upon to work many hours. Take last week, I put in between 50 and 60 hours. Of course, on the farm, it's necessary at times to put in hours like this also, and I think it will average out to about the same.
But with the bank, you do have a regular vacation each year.
This is true. We enjoy it.
This is something that all farmers don't enjoy. Well, now, one final question, Bob. As one who's closely associated with the business side of farming and with other businesses, too, what do you think about the future of farming?
There's definitely security in farming. If a young person is dedicated and willing to work hard, takes advantage of all the facilities available, he's sure to do well. Without the farm, we would not have a country, a city, or a bank. People will always have to buy food, and farming is the backbone of our nation. We have to eat to live.
Thank you very much, Bob Nutry. Dave, how did you become a farm operator?
I started originally by forming a partnership with 2 brothers, and we bought the home farm from my father. And then after 67 years together, I went on my own on this farm.
Well, why did you decide to go farming on your own?
Well, I always did want to farm on my own, Don, and the partnership came to the point where to continue as a partnership, we had to expand, and I felt this was the time to get out on my own.
This was, in effect, a way of expanding the partnership. Well, during the time that you were in this partnership, you also entered another very important partnership. Miriam, how did you feel about the change from the farm partnership to going farming on your own?
Well, I'm sure it meant a lot to Dave, knowing that I was in total agreement with the idea of going on our own. We feel we got off to a good start being in the partnership, and it certainly looked secure, but we felt that this was the thing we wanted to do, and this was the time to do it. It certainly was a challenge going into this debt, but was what we wanted to do.
It did mean more debt than when you were operating the partnership by itself.
Yes.
Now, Dave, do you still work with your brothers?
Yes, when we dissolved the partnership, we decided we were close enough to work together with machinery, and it's definitely to our mutual advantage to do so. And so we don't have to invest in the complete line to run our own farms.
You're able to keep your machinery investment down a bit then.
Well, this is the thing I'm trying to do.
Well, this is important. Now, I'm wondering why you chose farming as a career. This must have been quite a decision.
Well, first of all, it's traditional in our family to farm, and my father always encouraged the boys to take up farming as a career, and when it did come time for us to take over the farm from him, he encouraged us by giving us assistance and special financial help.
Yes. Well, Miriam, farming is your career too. Did you find it much of a change from working in an office to becoming a farmer's wife?
Well, I was raised on a farm and have a farm background, and during the time I worked in the office, I lived at home on the farm. So it was simply a change from being a farmer's daughter to a farmer's wife. But I shouldn't say simply, because it's quite a responsibility being a farmer's wife.
Dave, did you receive financial assistance from the family in establishing yourself in farming?
Yes, Dad took a mortgage on the farm, and he made a special arrangement with us concerning the livestock and machinery.
So it would have been considerably more difficult to start farming without this assistance.
Yes, definitely. I can say I'm not sure that I'd be farming today if we hadn't had that.
Well, many young people are wondering if it's possible to establish themselves on economic farm units without family financial assistance.
Well, financial assistance from the family would certainly make it much easier to get started. And without it, I'm sure that a young person would have to have some capital of his own and make good use of the credit that's available to farmers to get an economic unit going.
Yes, the family does play an important role in farming, whether it be in establishing young people on the farm or in operating the farm unit itself. Miriam, what are the main values you see to farm life?
Well, as I said before, I have a farm background and always enjoyed farm life. I feel it's the ideal spot to raise your family, and you're really part of the business. And I know it's a way of life I'll always enjoy.
Thank you very much.